The instant the courtroom doors opened, it changed. The air previously weighed down with boredom and rumor of expectation, now snapped electric, taut, brittle, almost choking. Reporters who had been finagling with their cameras were caught motionless. Pens ceased scrawling on notepads. Even the low murmur of curious citizens in the rear benches ceased abruptly, replaced by a chaste quiet that seemed to draw everyone inward, focusing their attention toward the doorway like moths on a flame. And then, she showed up. Robyn Brown. But not the Robyn anybody was waiting for. This was not the Robyn who had most commonly been viewed with tears streaming from her eyes, her voice shaking as she stood up for her place in the family. This was not the Robyn burdened by shame, scandal, or constant criticism from the outside world. No, this was a whole other woman altogether. She walked into the courtroom beaming, shining, full of an assertiveness so discomfiting it made the whole room move in unease. Her lips formed a smile, not one of nervousness, not one of doubt, but victory. Her chin was high, her eyes sparkled, and even her movement looked staged, like she had practiced this walk for months, perhaps years. Her footsteps rang out through the wooden floor, the hard click of her heels a reminder that every moment spent here was purposeful. Every glance followed her, every breath held in shock. She wasn't here to hide. She wasn't here to defend. She was here to declare. And then, the shocker. She wasn't alone. Right behind her, his head slightly ducked, but his hand firmly held with hers, walked Garrison Brown. The gasp that ripped through the courtroom was something no one had ever heard before. It wasn't surprise. It was disbelief, shock, and horror converging all at once. The sort of sound that doesn't emanate from one, but from a whole crowd collectively losing their footing. Robyn's smile grew as she lifted their clasped hands a little, as if to show it to the world. And then reality smashed like a sledgehammer. Robyn wasn't here as a witness. She wasn't here as an ex-wife, or even a victim. She was here as the new wife of Garrison Brown. The silence gave way to pandemonium. Christine's face turned white. Her eyes opened wide, and before she knew it, her hand had come out to catch Janelle by the arm. Holding it tightly, Janelle winced, her own mouth agape, trying to get words out. Meri, who was seated a couple of seats away, gave a sudden audible gasp and clasped both hands over her mouth, her body shaking as if she had just seen an accident. She shook her head furiously, whispering to herself, "No, no, this is not real. This can't be real." However, the most eerie response came from Kody Brown. His body stiffened, his face losing all color until it was a ghostly pale. His lips quivered, his eyes moving wildly between Robyn and Garrison, as if unwilling to accept what they saw. His hand clenched on the edge of the table before him so hard that his knuckles grew white. For an instant he appeared not to be able to breathe. This was more than scandal. This wasn't betrayal. This was the unthinkable. Kody's son, his own flesh and blood, had married the woman he used to refer to as his beloved wife. Whispers burst through the room like flames. Reporters leapt from their seats, cameras flashing, voices overlapping in an attempt to record the moment. Did she say wife? This is a stunt. What does this do for the case? This changes everything. Even the judge, who was used to handling hundreds of cases, appeared briefly shaken. He slammed his gavel on the bench, ordering order, but his words were lost in the outburst of voices swamping the courtroom. Robyn, unperturbed, stepped forward to the front, her stance impeccable, her smile set as if nothing could disturb her. She was radiant, almost luminous, as if the mayhem around her was mere background to her triumph. Her grip on Garrison's hand never relaxed, holding it tightly, almost possessively. But Garrison? His expression betrayed otherwise. He eyed the ground, his jaw set, his posture tense. It was as if he stood in the center of a storm he wasn't privy to. He didn't smile. He didn't appear triumphant. He appeared trapped. Christine caught it right away. She inched forward to Janelle, her voice a barely audible whisper. "Look at him. He's not smiling. He looks frightened." Janelle's lips pursed, her eyes narrowing as she examined her son. A maelstrom of feelings churned within her. Betrayal, confusion, heartbreak. Why should her own son stand by the very woman who had torn their family apart? Meri leaned in, her voice shaking but hard enough to pierce the din. Why are you smiling, Robyn? Why are you proud of this? Robyn turned her head slightly, her smile still fixed, and replied in a voice calm and steady. Because I've finally chosen happiness. And so has he. The words sent a fresh wave of shock through the courtroom. The audacity, the boldness, the confidence dripping from every syllable. Kody finally spoke out. His chair scraped against the floor as he rose up, a shaking finger pointing at them both. His rage-filled voice cracked. This is madness. This is betrayal. Robyn, how could you? And Garrison, my own son, how could you do this to me? But before he could go any further, the judge's gavel came down with a loud crash on the bench. Order, order in court. This is not a circus. Court is now in session. The reverberations of the gavel ran through the room, quieting the pandemonium for at least a moment. Everyone gradually sat back, their stare fixed on Robyn and Garrison. The murmurs didn't entirely subside. They lingered in the air like haze after flames, not to be avoided. Robyn tugged at her dress, smoothed her hair, and leaned in toward Garrison, whispering something in his ear. His eyes shifted upward briefly, not at her, but out the other side of the room. His eyes settled on his mother, Janelle. His eyes met hers, and his expression relaxed with the something unspoken. Guilt, regret, fear. Janelle's heart went out to her as she held Christine's hand. She knew this was only part of it. Something darker, something more profound, was going on here. And yet Robyn sat, exuding self-assurance, her smile challenging anyone to dispute her. The judge cleared his throat, his tone firm. In light of this revelation, today's hearing will have that much more significance. Let the record reflect, Robyn Brown appears in this courtroom today, as the wife of Garrison Brown. The words rang out like a death sentence. And so the stage was set. This was no longer just family disputes. This was no longer about old hurts, or bitter breakups. This was betrayal packaged in shock, packaged in scandal, and laid bare for all the world to see. And so the gavel fell again. Court is now in session. Robyn didn't so much sit down as claim her seat, like a queen taking her throne. Her posture straightened, her shoulders let out a silent sag, and her fingertips stroked the smooth face of the desk in front of her, as if even the wood was hers now. What made everyone most uncomfortable, though, wasn't her arrival. It wasn't the bombshell of marrying Garrison. It was the smile. That smile never changed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't wavering. It wasn't the smile of a person involved in a scandal, a person who desperately wishes to be proven innocent. No, it was the smile of a woman who had already won her battle. The cameras closed in ruthlessly. Reporters wrote furiously, attempting to capture the ideal words to encapsulate her aura. Radiant, confident, unassailable. Her left hand was perched carelessly on the desk, but the glint of her new wedding ring caught the light with every shift, intentionally calling attention to the very symbol that had broken the family apart. Christine's eyes blazed. As she moved closer to Janelle, her tone was crisp, though she kept it low enough not to be heard. Look at her. She's flaunting it. That smile, that ring. This isn't love. This is strategy. Janelle nodded slowly, her expression tight, but her eyes weren't on Robyn. They were locked on Garrison. Her son sat next to Robyn, his stance ramrod, his jaw locked. He hadn't cracked a smile once. His fingers beat against his leg, fidgety, agitated, betraying a tempest within that he couldn't conceal, no matter how much he tried. Janelle breathed back, her voice trembling. I don't get it. Why would he do this? Why would my own son marry her? Christine's mouth hardened. Because it's not love. It's control. The judge cleared his throat, reminding them all that this was, after all, a court proceeding, not a soap opera. But even he couldn't keep his gaze from darting back to Robyn, as if she was hiding something that no one else could. And then the first twist. The clerk of the court walked up to the bench and handed the judge a fat folder of papers. He pushed his glasses up, looked at the first few pages, and then stared straight at Robyn. Mrs. Brown, he started, stressing the title in a manner that caused half of the room to shudder. These papers indicate that your marriage to Mr. Garrison Brown has certain legal ramifications to the Brown family estate. Gasps traveled again around the room. Reporters scooted forward. Cameras zoomed in. The judge went on, his voice a little more pointed now. It seems that through this marriage you have opened yourself up to access to assets that were previously locked up under Mr. Kody Brown's name. Assets that until recently were out of your reach. Robyn's smile widened, her eyes glittering. She didn't deny it. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she tilted her head ever so slightly, as if acknowledging a clever move on a chessboard. Kody's face twisted with fury. He slammed his palm against the table, his voice echoing through the courtroom. This is what this is about. It's not love. It's greed. You've manipulated my son just to steal what belongs to me. Robyn didn't even turn around to confront him. She enunciated clearly, her voice carrying like a rope of silk across the room. Or perhaps, Kody, you're merely mad because for once, you can't control everything. The words hung in the air like a knife. Christine's eyes narrowed. Janelle felt her gut knot. Meri shifted uncomfortably, caught between shock and outrage. And Garrison? He did look up finally, for a fleeting instant, looking at his father. His face wasn't triumphant. It wasn't proud. It was twisted, like he was silently pleading with someone to see. But Robyn didn't allow him to say anything. She grasped his hand hard, taking the moment from him. She faced the judge again, her voice firm, even sweet. I didn't steal anything, Your Honor. I married the man I love. The rest is just the law doing its work. The courtroom erupted once more. Reporters screamed questions. Meri shook her head, whispering angrily to no one in general. She planned this. She planned this from the beginning. Christine leaned forward, her voice cold as ice. It's too perfect, too calculated. She wanted the money, the power, and the last shred of control over Kody. The judge pounded his gavel again and again, calling for silence. If there are additional interruptions, I will clear this courtroom. The commotion gradually died down, but the tension remained. If anything, it became more substantial, weighing down on all the people in the room. Robyn adjusted her dress again, her movements graceful, deliberate. She seemed unbothered by the chaos she had created. If anything, she thrived in it. And yet, Christine couldn't shake the feeling, clawing at her chest. Something about Robyn's happiness didn't feel real. It wasn't the happiness of a woman in love. It was the satisfaction of someone who had executed a plan flawlessly. Christine whispered once more, this time trembling. This isn't joy. This is victory. The mere idea sent shivers down Janelle's spine. She gazed at her son once more, analyzing every feature of his face, hoping to find some answers. Was this really his decision? Or was he trapped in something much more sinister than anyone knew? The judge leaned forward, his voice final. We are now going to hear opening statements. Let it be understood that the issue of this marriage will come directly into play today's case. The courtroom fell into uncomfortable silence. Robyn squared her shoulders, her grin relaxing into one almost angelic. She swept the room, her eyes catching each of her critics in turn. Christine, Janelle, Meri, even Kody. Her look rested on each of them, her grin never once faltering, as if she was thinking, I've won, and there's nothing you can do about it. And for an instant, just an instant, she was right. Then Garrison shifted restlessly in his seat. His gaze flicked again, not this time to Robyn, but to his mother. And in that split instant, Janelle saw it, a flicker of guilt, of fear, of something unspoken. Her heart raced. She did know. This wasn't finished. This wasn't the complete truth. Robyn may be smiling, but under that radiance was a secret so threatening it could destroy them all. And as the session continued, one thing became apparent to everyone in that courtroom. Robyn's happiness was not merely suspicious. It was frightening. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew heavier by the second. The news of Robyn marrying Garrison had already rocked the room, but the papers establishing her sudden inheritance of the Brown family mansion were gasoline spilled on an inferno. And now, the family was aflame. Meri couldn't sit still anymore. She leaped to her feet, her tone biting, cutting through the din. This is a scam. Robyn, you set this up. You've been plotting since day one, and now you've sucked Garrison in. He's just a pawn in your game. Her voice shook with anger, her hands shaking as she indicated Robyn. The courtroom gasped once more, some in agreement, others muttering angrily about whether this was so. Robyn, unbothered, crossed her legs gracefully, and leaned back slightly, her smile still lingering. She didn't raise her voice, didn't let Meri's outburst rattle her. Instead, she spoke calmly, almost sweetly, like she was teaching a child a lesson. Or maybe Meri, maybe Garrison isn't a pawn at all. Maybe he chose me. Maybe he wanted me. The words sliced through the courtroom like a knife. Meri's face flushed with anger, her chest heaving. She wanted to shout back, but before she could, another voice thundered through the room. It was Kody. He slammed both fists against the table in front of him, the sound echoing like a gunshot. His voice boomed with fury, shaking with betrayal. This is betrayal, treason against this family. Robyn, how could you? And Garrison, he spun around, shaking a shaking finger at his son, his voice shattering. My own son, how could you do this to me? How could you turn your back on me like this? The room fell silent once more. Everyone looked to Garrison. For the first time since entering the courtroom, he raised his eyes. His face was impassive, a tempest in his eyes. He parted his lips as if to say something, but Robyn's grip on his tightened, keeping him mute before he could say anything. That little action did not go unseen. Christine's keen eyes narrowed, catching the control in Robyn's grasp. She leaned towards Janelle, speaking so softly that only she could hear. See that? He didn't want to keep quiet. She's controlling him. Janelle's chest contracted. Her heart hurt for her son, but her fury simmered at Robyn. She balled her hands up so tightly, her nails bit into her palms. But then Christine surprised everyone. She rose to her feet. Her tone rang out through the courtroom, not furious, but with unbridled emotion. Don't you dare blame Garrison, Kody. Don't you dare throw this on him. You pushed him away. You pushed all of us away. You chose your pride, your power, and Robyn over your own babies. And now you want to stand here and play victim. The words hit like punches. Kody's eyes widened in surprise, his face contorting in shock. You think this is my fault? He shouted, his voice cracking. You think I made him do this? Christine didn't waver. She stepped in, her voice increasing, shaking with anger. Yes, because you left him. You left all of us. And now he's found someone who made him feel loved. Even if it's her. She glared at Robyn, still sitting smug and quiet, her fingers never releasing Garrison's hand. The room's tension burst like a pulled wire. Janelle stood up too, her voice firm but shattered. Christine's right. You don't get to stand there and cry betrayal when you've been betraying your family for years. Garrison didn't just wake up one day and make some snap decision like that. Something pushed him here, and we all know what, or who, that is. She shifted her glance to Robyn, her eyes burning. You've been whispering poison in his ear, filling his head with lies, playing him because you knew he was vulnerable. And now you've locked him in something he can't get out of. Robyn's smile trembled for the first time. Just for a moment, the audience buzzed, murmurs growing quickly. Writers jotted down notes. Cameras panned. The story was unfolding. Was Garrison in love, or was he a victim of Robyn's web? Robyn squared her shoulders, her tranquil mask slipping back over her features. She spoke in a firm, measured tone. You all believe you know him, but you don't. He sought me out. He trusted me. He chose me because I offered him something none of you ever did. Loyalty. The word hung there, heavy and cutting. Christine's face contorted. Janelle's heart broke. Even Meri seemed shaken. But Kody, his anger only intensified. He charged at her, his voice hoarse. You call this loyalty? You ruined everything. You ruined this family. And now you've stolen my son. You've taken everything from me, Robyn. Everything. The judge's gavel came crashing down, the cracking sound echoing through the air. Enough. Enough of this anarchy. This is a courtroom, not a battlefield. Sit down before I clear the room. Slowly, reluctantly, the Browns returned to their seats. But the fire wasn't extinguished. It was only smoldering, waiting to erupt again. The judge rubbed his temples, exasperated. But Christine noticed something. Robyn's hand on Garrison's hadn't moved. Her grip was iron. And Garrison, his body language, screamed discomfort. His jaw clenched tighter, His eyes flicked toward his mother again, then quickly back down. Christine murmured to herself, "He wants to talk. He wants out." But Robyn pinned him back, and for all those watching, one awful truth became apparent. This wasn't merely a marriage. This was a war of domination. The Browns weren't battling Robyn anymore. They were battling each other. And in the disorder, Robyn was triumphant. The courtroom was already seething with fury and betrayal, but no one was expecting what followed. Just as the judge raised his gavel to reinstate order, the heavy doors at the rear creaked open once more. The sound of the hinges cut through the tension like a knife. Everyone turned. A dark figure entered, tall and stoic, with a smooth black briefcase. The bailiff moved forward, calling out in a firm voice, "Your Honor, the court calls a surprise witness." The room exploded once more. Whispers swirled like a cloud of bees, buzzing through the courtroom. Photographers rushed for their cameras, already knowing that history was about to be made. Robyn's smile wavered for the first time. It was microscopic, barely perceptible, but to those who had known her best, it was a crack in the mask she had worn so perfectly all morning. Christine cocked her head toward Janelle, her voice cutting with suspicion. "Did you see that?" She wasn't anticipating this. Whoever that is, Robyn didn't prepare for them. The enigmatic figure made their way slowly down the aisle, the sound of their footsteps drawing out the suspense. The room leaned forward as if gravity itself drew them toward the truth that this individual bore. Lastly, the witness arrived at the stand. They placed the briefcase on the floor with careful deliberation, the sound of the metal locks releasing ringing out like a gunshot. Within, papers, photographs, and even tiny electronic gadgets shone under the bright fluorescent lights. The judge adjusted his spectacles, his voice serious. "State your name for the record." The witness tilted their head, showing a serene, almost frosty face. Their voice was unshakable, resolute. "My name is Daniel Mercer, private investigator." Gasps filled the room. Christine's eyes went wide. Janelle's hands gripped the edge of her seat. Even Meri leaned forward, her breath stolen from her throat. Kody's face contorted in confusion. "What is this? Who sent you?" he demanded. The judge quieted him with a stern glance. "Mr. Mercer, please present your evidence." Mercer nodded and produced a fat file, pushing it onto the judge's bench. His words were careful, measured, and sinister. "Your Honor, these are documents, recordings, and communications that confirm Mrs. Robyn Brown's marriage to Garrison Brown was not a work of love, but a masterminded plan." The room burst with noise once more. Reporters yelled, family members gasped, and Kody pounded his fists on the table. "I knew it," he thundered, pointing at Robyn. "I knew this was a frame-up." Robyn broke her silence, speaking sharply and in defense. "This is absurd. Lies, fictions intended to kill me." Mercer did not waver. He pulled out photographs from the folder and raised them for the court to view. The first picture revealed Robyn having a clandestine meeting with a man in a dark cafe. The second, a screen capture of an email thread between Robyn and an unidentified attorney. And then, the kicker, a contract dated mere weeks prior to the wedding. Mercer's voice pierced through the din. "This agreement indicates that Robyn Brown was to have direct financial control of assets associated with the Brown family property as a result of marrying Garrison, assets that were otherwise unavailable to her." Christine gasped, her hand on her chest. "She planned this. She planned all of this." Janelle shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears as she gazed at her son. "Oh, Garrison, what did she get you into?" Meri whispered, nearly under her breath. "She didn't want love. She wanted power." Robyn's voice grew loud, shrill with anger. "Those papers don't count. You don't know what you're saying, any of you. Garrison married me because he wanted to, because he loves me." But Mercer wasn't done. He produced a small recorder, hitting play. The courtroom went silent as Robyn's voice echoed through the room. "Don't worry. Once the papers are signed, everything will be ours. Kody won't be able to touch it. We'll finally have control." The room exploded in gasps and shouts. Robyn's face went pale. Her mask had shattered. Christine turned to the judge, her voice trembling with outrage. "You hear that?" She admitted it herself. This wasn't about Garrison. This wasn't about love. This was about taking everything from this family. The judge slammed his gavel, calling for order, but the room was careening out of control. Kody rose, his face contorted with anger.
gesturing at Robyn.
You destroyed me. You ruined this family, and now you've poisoned my son against me. You won't get away with this. Robyn fired back, her voice breaking with desperation. You were never a true father to him, Kody. He came to me because you failed him. You failed all of them. The words lingered in the air like venom. The family stood frozen, shocked at the bitterness in her tone. But amidst it all, Garrison did finally stir. He stood up slowly, his chair creaking loudly as it slid along the floor. His face was white, his hands shaking. The room fell silent, everyone watching him. For the first time he spoke. His voice was low and strained, but full of depth. You people don't get it. I didn't marry Robyn for love. I didn't marry her for riches either. I married her because, he froze, his throat constricted, his eyes flicking to Robyn. Her hand flashed out, locking around his arm in a vice. Her nails sank into his skin, shutting him up without speaking. Christine spoke softly. He's scared. He wants to tell us, but she's silencing him. The judge angled forward, his tone firm. Mr. Brown, if you have something to say, now is the time to say it. The courtroom leaned forward, each breath suspended, each heart racing. Garrison's mouth opened again, but his eyes met Robyn's, and the terror there was undeniable. Because, his voice broke, and he shook his head, slumping back in his chair. Because I had no choice. The words struck like a thunderclap. Gasps, cries, and shouts echoed through the room. Janelle's heart broke. Christine put her hand over her mouth in horror. Even Kody took a step back, as if the words had physically hit him. And Robyn? Her smile flashed back, cold, triumphant, frightening. The judge banged his gavel. This court will be in recess before we proceed with these revelations. But the harm was done. The truth was out. And everyone knew that now. Robyn's marriage wasn't only suspicious, it was deadly. The courtroom fell silent in shock after Garrison's fragmented words. I had no choice. It was as if time itself had come to a standstill. The judge's gavel rang out in the oppressive silence, but nobody budged. Nobody spoke. Christine gripped Janelle's arm, staring at her wide-eyed and frightened. No choice. What is he saying? She breathed, although her voice shook loudly enough for half the courtroom to overhear. Janelle's eyes welled up with tears, her heart in two. He's my son, and he's in something I don't know anything about. Kody, on the other hand, was not quiet. He leaped to his feet, his face flushing with anger. Tell them, Garrison. Tell the court what she did to you. Don't let her shut you up. Robyn gave Kody a glare so pointed it could shatter glass. Then she leaned in close to Garrison's ear, her voice soft but deadly. Don't forget what's at stake. You know what happens if you speak. The boy slumped lower. He appeared to be a prisoner bound by chains that no one could see. The judge finally spoke loud enough. This court requires honesty. Mr. Brown, you've implied coercion. Were you coerced into this marriage? The question echoed in the air like a siren. Each and every camera zoomed. Each observer leaned forward. The suspense was intolerable. But before Garrison could answer, Robyn's attorney stood, his voice thundering. Objection, Your Honor. My client is being tried in the court of public opinion, not in a court of law. This line of questioning is harassment. Chaos erupted once more. The gavel came crashing down. Reporters yelled. The family exploded. Christine leapt up, yelling over her tears. Harassment? That boy just said he had no choice. He's my kin, and I want to know the truth. Meri, normally quiet, finally spoke up, her voice quivering with rage. All of us have a right to the truth. This has gone far enough, Robyn. But Robyn remained eerily calm, her hand still gripping Garrison's arm like a puppet master holding her strings. She looked around the courtroom, her voice icy and sharp. You all want to paint me as the villain. But maybe the villain has been sitting right here all along. She turned, her cold eyes locking on Kody. You left your children behind. You left them shattered. You left them desperate for love and acceptance. And when I gave that love to Garrison, you couldn't handle it. You'd rather see him unhappy than with me. The words were like knives. Even Christine hesitated, her eyes shifting between Kody and Robyn. Kody's face contorted with anger. Don't turn this, Robyn. This is not love. It's manipulation. You've trapped him. Robyn smiled, her tone so sweet but lethal. Or perhaps I simply gave him something you couldn't. The courtroom gasped in shock. Garrison buried his face in his hands. He shook, torn between shame and terror, his body quivering under the suffocating weight of secrets that everyone else couldn't perceive. The judge's voice cut through like a razor. Enough. Mr. Mercer, do you have more evidence? The private investigator moved forward again, holding up another envelope. His tone was solemn. Yes, Your Honor. What I'm holding here will demonstrate exactly why Garrison believed he had no choice. The envelope shook in his hand, full of significance. Christine grasped Janelle's arm more firmly. Meri prayed under her breath. Kody's fists clenched on the table. But before Mercer could open the envelope, Robyn snapped. Her composure facade crumbled, replaced with sheer rage. She sprang to her feet, her voice breaking. No, that evidence cannot be had. It will ruin everything. The judge brought his gavel down. Mrs. Brown, sit down, or you will be escorted out of this courtroom. But Robyn refused to sit. She turned to Garrison instead, grasping his face in her hands, her voice trembling with desperation. Tell them, Garrison. Tell them you chose me. Tell them you love me, and that this was your decision. The young man's eyes welled up with tears. His mouth trembled. He glanced at his mother, Janelle, whose face glistened with unshed tears. Then at Christine, whose blazing eyes pleaded with him to escape. Then at Kody, whose fury blazed like fire. And then, he glanced at Robyn. The quiet was oppressive. Each second seemed longer than the last. The camera zoomed in closer, shooting the bead of sweat on his forehead, the shaking of his hands, the pain in his eyes. And then, Garrison said something. His voice was gentle, shattered, almost less than a whisper. I can't. Robyn's grasp on his face went harder, but the words had already come out. Christine's scream shattered the silence. Janelle buried her face in her hands, weeping. Kody pounded his fists on the table, bellowing like a hurt animal. The judge rapped his gavel, yelling for order, but it was too late. The courtroom had descended into pandemonium, a storm that could no longer be contained. And just as Mercer reached for the envelope a second time, the lights dimmed, the microphones crackled with static, and then, blackout. The whole courtroom was darkened. Shouts filled the air. Reporters staggered. The bailiff cried out for order, but nobody could see anything. In the darkness, one noise was heard, a thud, followed by a piercing scream. When the emergency lights at last came back on, the courtroom gasped. The briefcase was missing. The envelope was missing. And Garrison? He slumped forward, out cold. Robyn's arms clamped tightly around him. Her eyes blazed as she glared at the judge, her tone low and icy. This trial is over. The screen would fade here to dramatic music, leaving your audience on the ultimate cliffhanger. Who blacked out the courtroom? Where is the evidence that went missing? What did Garrison really mean when he declared he had no choice? And how far will Robyn go to keep her secret safe? To be continued.